So the controversial activist academic Dr Shola is facing a social media backlash for tweets suggesting that modern Britain's most prolific child serial killer, Lucy Letby, would have been caught earlier if she wasn't white.
She tweeted, "Lucy Letby exemplifies how ideology of whiteness keeps Britain in a chokehold. They believed her tears, denials, even though evidence said otherwise, for no other reason than she's white. A black or brown nurse would have been reported to the police immediately and sacked for suspicion."
She continued, narratives about an evil person's childhood and graduation pics only serve to normalise white criminals and create alternative facts for their evil. British media does this deliberately. We don't. Something they never do for black and brown criminals.
So does Dr Shola have a point? Femi Nylander is an actor, filmmaker and writer, and he thinks Dr Shola does. He joins us now. On what basis, Femi, does she have a point? What's the evidence?
By the Nursing and Midwifery Council and even the General Medical Council. I mean, so the evidence comes from the horse's mouth, so to speak. In the 2017 report, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, which, by the way, is the body which looks at complaints about nurses, said that their own body had ethnic minority nurses were more likely to be reported for fitness to practice complaint. At the screening stage, complaints about white nurses were more likely to be thrown out. And then after investigation, complaints about Asian and black nurses were more likely to were then more likely to be thrown out. And at the final stage, you had more complaints about white nurses going through, which shows that when the evidence is there and when the actual evidence is looked at, there's not that much misbalance, or even possibly slightly more of a misbalance towards complaints against white nurses. But when you're screening through this first thing, when someone is just first looking at these cases, as is the case with this particular Lucy Letby case, the complaint was made by a doctor of South Asian descent, not a white doctor, and it was thrown out, and he was forced to apologise to her, probably because, as this BBC journalist said yesterday, people don't think that Britain's most prolific child killer should look like this. So, I mean, the evidence is there. The evidence has been published by the Nursing and Midwifery Council themselves. And the same thing can be found with doctors if you look at the 2019 report by the General Medical Council.
I think when we've been talking, Femi, about the fact that she doesn't fit the stereotype of a serial killer, we have said that. I've said that on this show. What I meant was she's female. She's in a caring profession. That's what renders her unusual. It didn't cross my mind about how much melanin she has in her skin. And this sort of discussion is so divisive at a time like this, when the thoughts should all be with the victims of that woman, not dragging identity politics into it. All it does is divide people, doesn't it?
So, I mean, I don't deny in any way, shape or form that there could have been the male-female aspect. And if we look at the history of serial killers, most serial killers, by an overwhelming majority, have been male. You have your histories of your Ted Bundys, your Jeffrey Dahmers, your whatever it may be. You do have some stories of things like this happening, nurses killing doctors. Then you also have your Harold Shipmans, etc. So I wouldn't deny in any way, shape or form that it's possible to instrue those particular comments as to do with male and female. But we have to look. The reality is, there's a parallel with the whole grooming gangs thing, where people say, oh, grooming gangs, Pakistani men, when actually a lot of the grooming that happens in this country is by men of European and British descent. There is, to some degree, a connection with the idea of this image of the English rose, this image of the blonde, kind of virtuous English rose. And innocence, and no one is saying that BBC journalists might not have been referring to male, female, this, that, and the rest, caregiving profession. You have good points, but I've told you the evidence. The evidence is ethnic minority nurses. Yeah, the evidence from the horse's mouth, from the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and you're still rejecting
that
the
Midwifery
idea.
Council had nothing to say. Hang on, Femi. That had nothing to do with Lucy Letby, the report by the Nursing Midwifery Council. The consultant you mentioned of an Asian background did not say once he didn't think his complaints were taken seriously because of the colour of Lucy Letby's skin. He said it was a failure, yet again, of management in the NHS, management, not medical staff, who were more worried about the reputational damage to the hospital. He did not raise her skin colour once. Nobody has at all, apart from you and Dr Shola.
I didn't say
Only you and Dr Shola.
He did. I've given you a report which shows.
You're not listening to anything I just said, are you?
Fitness
You're not listening to anything I said.
Nurses are more likely to be thrown out.
Right. You didn't.
How has that got nothing to do with Lucy Letby? Lucy Letby was allowed to carry on killing babies after a complaint had been made. I'm not talking about what the doctor said. I'm talking about what was said about Lucy Letby, and I'm talking about the fact that a report by the Nursing and Midwifery Council has admitted that there's a problem,
right,
and by the General Medical Council as well.
When it comes to this debate, Femi, when it comes to this debate, which seems to be increasing in intensity and volume all the time about identity politics and race, how do we move forward? Because you look at the NHS, we've got 2/5 of doctors, consultants and dentists, in fact, and 1/3 of nurses are black and minority ethnic people. The NHS is a wonderful fruit salad of people of all nationalities and melanin counts, because that's really what we're talking about here. And yet this story becomes something, this awful story of Lucy Letby is being dragged into such a negative space because of some commentators who want to draw attention. We need to move forward, don't we, to live in a post-racial world?
You need to do our evidence when it's given to you on a platter. Go and read this report. Go and Google the report, find the report and read it. And stop just rejecting what I'm saying, because it's been admitted by the Nursing and Midwifery Council.
So, but the solution to your report...
Files these complaints.
I'm not saying that the report is not valid. I understand that. But I'm saying, how do we move forward then with that understanding? How do we? Because you mentioned the grooming gangs. And of course, in the grooming gang situation up north in this country, it has been proven that those gentlemen were not investigated because of their ethnicity. The police were frightened to shine a light upon that particular culture for the very opposite of what you're complaining about.
We won't get it. I mean, I'm from Bolton. Too long ago in Bolton, there were a bunch of white men doing the same grooming thing. So it's not that Pakistani men are less likely to do this. But anyway, the point is, I've given you the evidence. The way we get past this is by admitting that it's possible. I'm not going to say 100%, but it's possible that the profile of innocent kind of English Rose allowed someone to get away with murdering more children than they would have got away with if it had been earlier. It's possible that a senior consultant or someone else said, oh no, but Lucy, she's one of us, she's lovely, she's a lovely girl, she'd never do these things, and she got away with killing 2 more babies or 3 more babies. I'm not going to say it's certain, but I'm going to say it's very possible, and that there is evidence towards that possibility.
It's just mischievous speculation.
The Nursing and Midwifery Council have given a report
about 10 times.
saying that exactly. So that's the evidence.
Yeah.
Please go and read that. That's the evidence that is possible.
There is no evidence.
If I say there's a report,
sorry, Femi.
But there is.
There's no evidence that Lucy Letby was allowed to continue her reign of terror because of her skin colour.
To be thrown out at the screening stage. Yeah. More likely to be thrown out at the screening stage.
And I notice you didn't engage with Bev's point about the grooming gangs.
Go and find it.
And you didn't engage with Bev's point about the grooming gangs.
Please give me the report. She didn't give me a report written. She's not giving me any real evidence. She's just making a speculative
point. You've not given us any evidence at all, Femi. Sorry.
I don't dispute the NMC's report. I don't dispute that there might... What you're talking about is a stereotyping that happens within those situations. What I'm saying is we need to move forward in this debate because it's so divisive, and we need to applaud those people who work in the NHS, who are black and minority ethnics, who are doing an amazing job. And in this situation, I just think for Dr Shola to come out and to make this particular incident about race, and I think when they say, she wasn't, Lucy Letby wasn't identified.
Dr Shola, I'm not attacking Lucy Letby.
I don't think it's because she was white. I think it was her character. I think it was her demeanour. She's clearly manipulative. That's my point.
The only other thing to mention about Dr Shola's points is the second part of the tweet she made. And I have seen all of these Daily Mail headlines and the rest. And the picture they're always using is a smiling picture of Lucy Letby holding a child. And when we have kind of people like me who are convicted of crime, when we have pictures of me committing crime, usually we have the mugshot. Why are we not seeing the mugshot of Lucy Letby?
Because why are we not seeing her portrayed as? Because it's so powerful.
Can I say to you, Femi, if you read the Daily Mail, the last 2 days, all we've seen is her eyes, the mugshot. That's the mugshot that's been on the front of just about every paper this week. So please keep up to date with your facts. That has been on every front page this week, the Daily Mail, 2 days running.
Femi, good to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the show. Femi and Ireland are there. I think we all want to find a way forward for this so that we live in a world where it doesn't matter. And talking about the Daily Mail, it's a marvellous paper. It's got my name on it today.
Lord. Must be good.
I've written a piece in there.
I don't think Dr Shola's got a single shred of evidence to make that assertion.
I just get frustrated with identity racial politics being dragged in and weaponised at every situation like
infamous
in that.
Child killer in history, and they're reducing it to, oh, it must be because she wasn't black. If she'd been black, they'd have caught her sooner. Ridiculous.